Welcome to the NBA Free Agency Special, presented by Kia.
What do you guys think? I mean, Ryan, do you think emojis help or hurt a team's chances of landing a big fish in free agency?
Well, it worked for the Clippers 2 years ago.
I'm just really amused by all the rings that people are claiming that they had nothing to do with.
I mean,
Yeah, Mr. Whiteside doesn't have any of those rings.
Neither does Isaiah Thomas.
That's true.
It's been done. It's been done. You got to be original.
No, don't stop him. Keep going.
Hey, welcome to the Jump Free Agency Special. This is day 3, presented by Kia, alongside Amino Hassan. That's Brian Windhorst, both NBA insiders. And I'm Ramona Shelburne, and in my ear is Rachel Nichols, in spirit, telling me what to say. Hey, day 3, and we have not seen the kind of deals that were made last year. Remember last year when everybody was freaking out and NFL players were saying, whoa, can I get some of that kind of money? Look at all these teams with that much cap space left that have not been spending it. I mean, what is going on here? Why are these teams holding back?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that work. Last year, we had a massive jump in the cap to the point where we had more than 2/3 of the league having $20+ million in cap space, the ability to go after max guys. This year...
Look at those contracts last year. Look at those. Everybody got paid.
Not picture Joakim Noah.
You don't talk about the Joakim Noah contract? Just don't mention it.
The number was too big for the screen. No, but you know, the truth is, there were only a limited amount of star players, and everybody had money, and there was a pressure from every franchise to say, look at what we're doing. We're really active. We went and got so-and-so or such and such. And so that flurry happened. Little buyer's remorse, plus a cap that went up a little bit, just a little bit this year, and actually less than what was originally expected, plus not as many stars, plus next summer having more stars on the market. All this is a witch's brew.
Brian, but here's the thing. Like, people always come up with ways to drive down the market, right? They do that to anybody in any walk of life. We've all been through this with our own contracts, right? Anytime that somebody can drive down the market and make the players feel like they can't get as much money, they will do that, right? So this summer there's so many free agents that are still out there. Let's look at who's still out there. Which free agents are still out there, guys?
Well,
There's a couple of big-time stars still out there. What about that guy, Kevin Durant? He's not bad. He's still out there.
how many meetings is he taking?
0.
Gordon Hayward, Paul Millsap. Look at these names.
Let me just say that there has been $1 billion in new contracts given out, so it's not like the market's dry. It's just not as hot as it was a year ago, and by putting that out there, I think it makes it seem like it's slowing down. But you know, Kyle Lowry got $100 million today. Serge Ibaka got $65 million today. But what we're not seeing is the long term. I think what we're really seeing is the shorter term deals. Teams are worried because of those contracts we saw at the top that are now trying to get rid of. The Lakers are trying to get rid of Luol Deng. They already got rid of Timo Mozgov. And also next summer, we have a really good free agent class next summer with a couple of big-time stars. And the salary cap is going to stay kind of flat.
Look at that. Look at that.
That's some names. But I do want to point out something else, Ramona, because I have heard people talk about collusion, the idea that they're trying to keep salaries down. There's one thing that protects the players from this, the BRI split. The BRI split basically says you guys...
That's basketball-related
basketball-related income, which is how they calculate the salary cap, right? And so with a 50-50 split, 50% of the revenues that come in have to go to the players. So what happens if everyone signs, and somehow that ends up, because there's collusion, only being 47% or 48%. That little slosh goes back to everywhere. They redistribute that 2%.
Let me tell you why there's no collusion. Because these owners have egos.
That's it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they want to compete with each other. But I still think, you know, there are some guys right now that are a little bit worried. That are a little squeezed and a little bit
calling
worried.
their agents every single second.
For sure. And
Hey, where's the money? Why isn't Orlando coming in? Where's my leverage?
I was back to Kyle Lowry. You know, he gets a beautiful contract today, 3 years, around $100 million. But he thought he was going to get more. He thought he was going to get more years and more money. So some of these teams out there who haven't spent their money, they're like, you know what? Now we're in the zone that a lot of the top guys have gone off the board. Let's just hold back. You may be able to get a guy at a discount, and those discounts were not available last year.
Well, fortunately, we have a team like the Sacramento Kings who is willing to play ball and give everyone leverage. Because you know what they did today, according to Chris Haynes and Mark Spears? They made a max offer to Otto Porter. He's a restricted free agent. Washington said they're going to match any deal.
$106 million.
However, that's the first restricted free agent we can see that's got a max offer sheet. So I mean, you said it yesterday. Sacramento's always willing to do this. Maybe one of these times somebody doesn't match. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. And the slow start to the free agency period notwithstanding, we all expected throughout the year that Otto Porter was going to be a max player. So this can't have come as a surprise to the Washington Wizards, even as the first 48 hours have been, as we said, not as exciting as they were a year ago. This actually helps them, to me, because if you know he's a max player, if you're the Wizards and you offer him the max, it's 5 years, 8% raises. But if someone else offers him the max because they're using cap space, they don't have the bird rights, they can only get 4 years, the raises are smaller, 5%. So basically, Washington's like, perfect, go ahead and offer it. We'll match on that, and we just saved ourselves some money.
However, the Washington Wizards franchise has never paid the luxury tax. Now, they've said that they're going to match, and maybe they will. And by the way, there's a new rule this year. Unlike in years past where the restricted free agents could make a deal and then have to wait for a week before signing and then stuff happens with secret meetings and stuff like that. This year, Otto Porter can sign the offer sheet ASAP if he wants to do it. And then they would still have a week to match. But I want to see if the Wizards match this offer because this would take them into the luxury tax. Now, maybe they will. Maybe they'll match it, say thank you very much for doing it, Sacramento. Congratulations to Otto and move on. But considering they still have business out there with John Wall, who has not signed the 4-year extension they gave him, John Wall's got to be paying very close attention here. And it's interesting, Sacramento wouldn't have given this out unless they thought there was a percentage chance that Washington wouldn't match. Is it 2%? Is it 27%? We're going to find out.
Rebuttal. From Washington, Otto Porter's a guy I believe in. We know he, as a young swing player, can guard 3s and 4s, can play the 3 or 4, shoots 3s, defends, all that stuff. I matched the deal, and then I can figure out other things. I got a guy like Markieff Morris on a very affordable deal. He's a productive player. Someone will come taking him, and that can take me back below the tax line.
Maybe you're right. We'll see. I just want to see. I'm someone who wants to see it to believe it, and I will wait and see it. I
think all three of us are in the crew that says we like when the billionaires spend their money. We like when the owners pay the extra tax, right? Like there's this idea that those whatever they're saving, I know there's a salary cap, whatever they're saving, it's really just the owner paying the tax.
Yes and no. For one time, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take management side.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I'm just going to look away. I don't even want to see it.
Call the medics.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not about the money. A lot of times it is. But sometimes it's not. Because in this new collective bargaining agreement, actually the last one that we signed, not the one that we're on now, they introduced this concept that luxury taxpayers have less freedoms. No sign-in trades. Smaller, mid-level exception. These are real things that can handcuff a team from improving further. It's the kind of stuff that, why the Cavs, people say, why don't the Cavs just sign and trade for Paul Millsap? They can't. They're a taxpayer. And so when you make a decision, like the Washington Wizards, to be a tax-paying team, it's not just, oh, we have to pay this money out. There's also other ramifications.
Well, speaking of the Cavs, you know who's not tweeting out emojis, who's actually sub-tweeting like Jay-Z lyrics and making everyone wonder if he's talking about his own?
Kate Calder?
Yeah, that would be LeBron.
Oh, LeBron.
Dave McMenamin reported that LeBron is not taking an active role in free agency this year. Right? He's not going out and texting everyone, tweeting, recruiting for them. They obviously got Kyle Korver returning on a nice contract. They just re-signed him, and that was the impetus. That was one of their main goals in free agency going in this time. But what do you think? Where's LeBron's head at right now? You're our foremost LeBronologist over there.
LeBron is being active.
Oh, okay.
I mean, LeBron is not calling Jose Calderon to close that deal.
He's a nice guy.
Jose Calderon, God bless, getting that deal on July 1st from the Cavs.
That's a Warriors beater right there.
Wow. No, I think that the point is, he's not out there trying to appeal to some of these lower-level free agents. Did LeBron try to talk to Jimmy Butler and try to talk to Paul George? Not try. He did talk to them about the concept of them playing together if the Cavs could pull off that trade. Yes. Does that fit into the box of recruiting? Well, they weren't free agents, so it's not really recruiting. But LeBron has been very active in the Cavs offseason. LeBron doesn't understand why the Cavs haven't named a general manager yet. That has gotten him.
Someone's not playing in the Big Three league, right?
That can be good news, right? If you're a Cavs fan, you're saying, well, where are we on this GM search? Our number one target would rather be playing 3-on-3.
Well, and also the guy running the team is off at the White House with the Cubs and President Trump.
Look, to me, this is way more concerning for the LeBron-Dan Gilbert relationship. That's the part that concerns you if you're a Cavs fan here. Because, the idea here is that LeBron's saying...
There's the guy that should be running the Cavs right now.
Oh, look at him.
How do you do? We got any reports yet?
Well, he's not hurt. And that's the good news.
Okay.
But going back to the Cavs, the other thing here, again, is when you say, hey, David Griffin, thanks for 3 great years, but we don't need you. Look, you can say a lot of things about Griff's tenure. One thing that we know, he was a deal maker. You know, we talked about yesterday, Pat Riley talked about, we make deals around here. We get it done. We get our man. Think of a target that the Cavs had over the last 3 years that they weren't able to accomplish. They got them all. They got everyone that they wanted. Everyone that they targeted, they got. And right now, you talk about what Jimmy Butler went for, what Paul George went for. These deals just slipped through the Cavs' fingers. Why? Because their point man wasn't there.
And we talk about like a deal maker. Like, let's go back to that Houston deal with Chris Paul. Remember how we all did the math and we heard the first names in and we go, well, that's not quite right. The money doesn't add up. You see what Daryl Morey did where he did all these trades for these guys?
Trades.
Six trades to get guys on non-guaranteed contracts just to make that math work.
I will say this, because I think this bears being pointed out. With the Kyle Korver contract that the Cavs signed today, which, by the way, guarantees they're bringing back their core of their roster, Dan Gilbert is committing to $43 million in luxury tax for next year. Now, I know that in the grand scheme of things, what does it matter how much the owner pays in tax? Because does that help the team on the court? But what I think it's showing is it's not like Dan Gilbert's not doing anything. He is still very invested in this team. He is still sending a message to LeBron and other players that he is spending and that he wants to make this a championship team. They weren't able to make that Paul George trade. I've talked to all kinds of parties involved with it. Everybody's got a different story as to why they couldn't pull off the three-way trade with the Nuggets that would have landed them Paul George. Ultimately, it didn't happen. Does that ultimately become a fatal, misjudgment that they weren't able to do it? We'll have to see. But I don't think it should be fair to look at the Cavs and say they're not doing anything, because they are.
But you lived through this once before, Brian, right? You were in Cleveland when LeBron was in his last years there, right, in 2009, 2010, before he left to go to the Miami Heat. And it was a very similar story that they couldn't pull off. They tried Antoine Jameson. Remember they tried to
They traded for Shaq and Antoine Jameson, but that team did not have Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. This team does. And I agree that going forward, the Cavs are in a tough position. But I also think that to say that they're not doing anything is also not accurate either.
It's not doing anything is a little harsher, but it's still not in the direction that one would hope. And the idea is, again, you let go of someone who was very productive, and now you're taking trips to Washington, taking pictures of the optics are terrible. And all of these kind of sloppiness or loose ends, they add up. Maybe it's not any one particular thing, but at the end of the day, a year from now, LeBron's going to sit back and think of his future, and he's going to say, well, what direction has this organization taken in the last year? Is it up or is it down?
Well, stick around, because the Jump Free Agency Special is coming right back with a guy who makes texting into an Olympic sport. That's Adrian Wojnarowski. Look at him, texting away. Look how fast those fingers move. Join the show next with more on the Raptors bringing back Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka.
The NBA Free Agency Special. The NBA Free Agency Special, presented by Kia.
Welcome back to the Jump Free Agency Special, presented by Kia. And it's time for us to bring back ESPN NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski for the latest on free agency news. And we talked at the top of the show about the difference in spending between this year and last year. Man, football players were tweeting about it last year. Everything was 4 years, 5 years, big money deals. This year it's 2-3-year deals. What's going on?
Well, you guys hit on it earlier, Ramona. Fewer teams with cap space. Teams that have certainly been less aggressive. But part of it is a lot of players, what slowed up the market, and talking to agents, general managers, is that expectations for so many players were really high when they looked at what happened last summer. Teams and agents knew that without the smoothing in of the cap spike, they put it all in that last year, in the first year, that players like Luol Deng, Timofey Mozgov, players like that would just artificially get an advantage because they happen to be free agents then. And what's slowing the market now, a lot of agents, front office people believe, is that players aren't accepting of where they are financially. And even when agents are saying, you really need to take this deal, this is the best you're going to get, they're being told, please go out and keep looking. There has to be something more for me. And that's slowed it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, timing's everything, right? And you saw those deals last year. That's why there was an idea of cap smoothing, the idea of that, well, maybe, if we spread it around, everybody else will get paid. But now you're at this reality where you're not going to get the deals that you got last year. And I think that's how the market shakes out. Well, earlier today, you reported Toronto has re-signed Serge Ibaka and Kyle Lowry. So, but they were on shorter deals than I think people might have been expecting. What's Toronto doing here? Are they keeping those two guys, but then moving some other guys around?
Well, it's, both Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry had hoped to come into this period and get 5-year, at least 4-year deals. Now, they got the numbers they wanted. Kyle Lowry wanted to be a $30 million a year player, and he got that with a 3-year deal that pays him upwards of $100 million. But what Masai Ujiri's trying to do here is, if this group maxes out, and that's what he was concerned about, bringing this team back, that if this group had gone as far as it could go, that he's got an exit strategy sooner than all of a sudden having two players in their 30s going into 4th and 5th years of deals. And so they could be 2 years into this, say we've gone as far as we can go, and then they can make moves and get out. But they also want to get some money off now. And Toronto's looking at something else too. They're seeing the talent drain in the East. Paul George has gone west. Paul Millsap could potentially go west. Who knows what happens with Gordon Hayward if he stays in Utah. That they also see a short-term window here where they're going to have an opportunity to compete because we've seen this migration over the years and it's continued this year.
Yep.
So, Woj, you mentioned that Paul Millsap just a second ago. He seems to me to be one of the guys who the market is squeezing. Also, maybe George Hill. Who are some guys that you think may be available for bargains that we didn't think were going to be bargains maybe 48 hours ago?
Well, listen, players like Derrick Rose, players who thought maybe they would do better than the mid-level, like a Patrick Patterson, who's been a really productive player in Toronto. And I think that's where a lot of teams have held back and didn't jump in quickly this year. We saw more teams jump in quickly, do big deals. I think teams feel like guys are going to come back to them. And all of a sudden, with their teams who have exceptions, with the taxpayer mid-level, for example, the Golden State Warriors, and we reported this today, Nick Young is very much on their radar. And could they get him at that $5.2 million, or a part of that $5.2 million exception, when he's going to have opportunities maybe closer to the mid-level, to the full mid-level of $8.5 million. So I think you're also seeing teams wait back and say, we're going to get some bargains here when guys come to the reality that that the big deal they anticipated is not out there, and so there's a lot of teams are sitting back.
Good stuff, Woj. Thanks for coming on again. We'll see you again later in the show. Hey, Brian, let's talk about Serge Ibaka, who, as Woj reported, re-signed with the Raptors for 3 years at $65 million. After getting traded to the Raptors at the All-Star break, Ibaka averaged 14.2 points and 6.8 rebounds in 23 games. This is an Uber, though. Well, let's talk Serge pricing. Get it? You like that? You see what we did there?
You hate when you see that, don't you?
Is it a mistake for the Raptors to give him this much money?
So the worry thing here, Serge put out a tweet.
I like that.
With a statement yesterday talking about how frustrated he is that people have questioned his age. According to his birth date, he's 27 years old. And he's absolutely correct that for years now, people have questioned and whispered behind the scenes, how old is he really? But I don't think that's why people were hesitant to pay him. I think the reason he didn't have much of a market outside Toronto was that over the last 2 years, his numbers have taken a dip. And whether you're 27 or you're 31 or whatever anyone's age is, you feel a little bit weird going, being into your biggest free agent situation, coming off 2 subpar years. And, certainly his agent and Serge could explain this and say, well, things changed for me in Orlando when I was there. Things changed. I was a role player all of a sudden. In Oklahoma City, things changed dramatically for me when they changed the roster a little bit, brought in Enes Kanter. But that's what people are worried about, is that production. And so I know that Toronto sat around and wondered if they should make this investment. They obviously had to talk a lot about it. He gets his money, and I'm happy for him, but we'll see whether or not these last 2 years were an anomaly.
Well, and Woj talked about this earlier. Toronto may be at their ceiling, right? I think they had a decision to make of, okay, they took the Cavs to 6 games 2 years ago. This last year got swept, and it wasn't even close. And this group, they're getting older and more expensive. It's the same conversation we had with the Clippers. They're getting older, more expensive, and you can't beat the team that you're trying to beat. Is it time to tear it down?
I say no. I mean, you look at the Eastern Conference, it's gotten weaker across the board, right?
Okay.
You look at, in the first segment, we talked about the Cleveland Cavaliers. there's uncertainty about their future, obviously all tied to what LeBron decides to do. Have the Raptors hit their ceiling? Maybe. But their ceiling may be the ceiling of the East in a year, or if not this year. And this is what we always talk about when you have a good team and a good thing going in continuity, as the Raptors do. Sometimes all it takes is a wet spot on the floor and a well-timed kick to the groin, and all of a sudden, but I'm just saying, like, you don't know what happens. If you are able to be in the position to take advantage of someone else's misfortune because of bad luck one way or another, you owe it to yourself to keep that going. Now, particularly what is important about them is they managed to keep it going without overextending themselves. This could have been really ugly. A 5-year deal for Lowry. A 5-year
Maybe
deal
they
for
have overextended themselves, dude, because they're now looking at a $20 million tax bill. They've never paid the tax that level before.
Well,
there's already been some speculation that they may have to trade backup point guard Corey Joseph just to get off of the money, which, look, if you keep your two guys, one of whom has been a multi-time All-Star, and you got to get rid of your backup, okay, no big deal. But it wouldn't surprise me if Toronto takes a money move here.
Well, there's already talk of Valanciunas, of a DeMar Carroll.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot of their, like, they've got their core, but the guys right next to the core are in danger.
They've now got 4 guys making over, I think, $12 million a year, $13 million a year. That's a couple of them making over 20, three making over 20.
Also highlights the difficulty of getting talent to Toronto. Why does DeMar Carroll make so much money? Because they had to offer him that to get him there. Why does Corey Joseph make so much money? Because they had to offer him that to get him there. Now you've just got to manage the situation, but again, you keep your core guys together. It's in a weird, bizarre way, it's just like Golden State, right? You keep their core 4 together, then you have to make tough decisions. Do I want to pay Andre Iguodala $48 million over the next 3 years? Know what my tax bill is going to be like? Probably not, but guess what? I have to keep the success going, because the alternative, to take a step back and then say, well, maybe something might come from heaven to help us out. Not good enough.
Well, the Celtics welcomed Gordon Hayward and his wife. That was good, and they spelled her name right, too. It's spelled with a Y. The Fenway Park Jumbotron. And part of the sales pitch was a video that also ran on the same screen. You like that? I mean, look at that. Look, they got her name spelled right and everything. I bet people mess that up. You like that?
No, I don't understand why Boston's go-to every year is to take them to Fenway Park.
Well, last year with Tom Brady. Remember that? He came out to the Hamptons?
Yeah, I might be asking him. I go, he might be looking around the corner. Where's Tom Brady?
Yeah.
No, but you can't do that. Like, if Durant got Tom Brady, you can't give Gordon Hayward Tom Brady.
They take everybody to Fenway Park. That's their thing. I mean, they didn't do it Durant, obviously, because he said, you got to come to me. But everyone else, it's like the Fenway visit is like a highlight. Like, nobody cares about Red Sox, these ball players. And by the way, if you're trying to wow me and wine and dine me, one person took me to the beach. The other person took me to Fenway Park. Come on.
The Celtics took him and showed him their vault of draft picks. Yeah, they said, look at our beautiful vault of draft picks. All of these
trophies around there. They got some banners.
They have a lot of trophies there. But none of them have been won since 2008 with any of these players.
Yeah, exactly. There's only one relevant banner. No one cares about the banners that Bill Russell won if you're a modern player, right? No one. They barely care about the ones that Larry Bird raised.
I will say this. If Gordon Hayward goes to the Celtics, it's a gigantic change in the Eastern Conference. It upgrades them. It changes their outlook going forward. In a way, he is a perfect player for them because they need a big infusion of talent. They need somebody who can take the scoring burden over when Isaiah Thomas is being double-teamed as he was. And I think the question is, and the question if I were Gordon would be asking is, in Utah, I'm the number 1 option. I'm the go-to guy they run plays for at the end of the game. In Miami, I guarantee you they were showing him ways where he could be the number 1 option. Watch Goran Dragic set you up to be a hero. What are they going to say in Boston? Well, Isaiah will take care of you. We'll make sure Isaiah keeps you involved in the offense. That's a big factor as you look at team construction. It's also the reason why they'd be so great if they got him, because they would add him to a really good core.
Well, Brian, you mentioned Miami, okay? I know they might have shown him a video or talked about that, but Deion Waiters, he might have a bone to pick with you on that one. I think he's getting the shot at the end of the game.
They can't afford Deion Waiters and Gordon Hayward. And the reports today that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra actually flew here to L.A. to meet with Deion Waiters yesterday. And they had to say to Deion, hey, we had to deal with Gordon Hayward first, and we're going to have to deal with you second.
And how does that make Deion feel?
By the way,
not happy.
It's a replay of what happened last year. They told Dwayne Wade, until Kevin Durant officially marks us off the list,
that's right,
we can't offer you what you're looking for. And that was kind of one of the sticking points in that relationship. But again, in both scenarios, I don't think they're wrong. They're saying we have a chance for a superior player. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, but that's what we're about here. And we're not saying you're out of the picture, but we are saying we're going to give ourselves the best shot. By the way, if they do try to bring back Dion Waiters, they either have to use the cap space that we talked about, or all they'll have is what?
Mid-level exception.
And what else? Something else.
You get excited saying that.
Oh, the non-bird, qualifying bird operator.
No, you got to sell it. Come on, sell that. Like it's gonna.
Well, it's not going to. Dion's not going to buy that.
He's not taking that. He's definitely not taking that.
It's funny that Dion was the odd man out in Oklahoma City last year. They used the money on Russell Westbrook to extend him, and he sort of had to take a bad contract in Miami. He could end up as the odd man out if Gordon Hayward chooses Miami, and somebody could get an incredible discount.
Can't wait for the Players Tribune after that.
Yeah, and there's another thing to say here, and nobody wants to say definitely not in Miami, but I think other teams will say, how do we know that this is the new Dion Waiters? How do we know he just didn't have a contract year?
How do we know this is a new James Johnson in Miami? The same thing, and he's probably going to get a great contract.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be as much as what Waiters was looking for.
That's true.
He's the resident of Waiters Island, so
not Waiters Island, Heat Island.
Heat Island's Waiters Cove.
Hey, remember last year when Kevin Durant announced his decision on July 4th? Gordon Hayward looks like he's going in that same direction. Show's not over. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back and talk about the Thunder's chances in the West with Paul George and Russell Westbrook in 2017. Remember Wolves winning the offseason?
Well, they've added 3 really good players in the last 10 days. Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, Jeff Teague. They're absolutely being remade in Tom Thibodeau's image. This is going to be a defensive first, rugged, grind them out, 82 wrestling matches type of team. And considering what they did last year, which is where they really made minor moves and left a whole bunch of salary cap space on the table, huge moves. They're going to be a contender. But, I mean, none of these guys that they got can shoot.
Yeah,
and that was their major issue, one of their major issues last year. And it looks like the way they've constructed their team that Tibbs is going to go with the traditional two big men approach with no space for Karl Towns.
I don't hate that because, like, when you look at the Warriors, everybody in the West is trying to take down the Warriors, right? And what's the team that's giving the Warriors the most problems? Memphis, and that big man crew.
I think that's overblown.
Well, if Mike Conley doesn't get hurt in that series, this is how good the Warriors are. You find the one series
Ramona,
2 years ago where they had a little trouble.
No, they had a little trouble, and then they said, wait a second, why are we guarding Tony Allen again? Game over. Chess match over, right? Because the whole point about the Warriors is you want to play big? We can guard. Our little guys can guard your big guys. Can your big guys guard our little guys? No, they cannot. So we say, oh, we'll give the Warriors a hard time with Taj and Karl Towns. Which one of those guys is guarding Kevin Durant when they go small? Right. Like, so it's like.
You know what? Taj has
He's not guarding Kevin Durant.
Taj was guarding James Harden in the playoffs last year. Remember this? I remember that series. I was like, is Taj Gibson on James Harden right now?
Look, James Harden is one thing, and Kevin Durant is something else. And I get it. No one can guard Kevin Durant. But you got to have someone who's mobile enough to stick with him. And for that matter, Karl Towns guarding Draymond Green, that's no walk in the park either. Now, I think the way of the future is why we're seeing all of these bigs who 2 years ago would have had massive deals. Look how many big men on the market that didn't really get any kind of love. Why? Because everyone's figuring out I need 6'8", 6'9", rangy, long guys who can move.
Well, Taj Gibson is a quality player, and this is a quality signing. Only a 2-year deal, $14 million a year, but 2 years, which goes along with what the market is doing. The thing about it is that there are going to be times where their best three-point shooting option on the court for the Timberwolves is Karl Towns, which is what teams want because he's maybe the most deadly post player in the league. Great footwork, can score with both hands. You're like, you want to take a three? Go ahead and take that three because you're not as good as you are in the post. So we'll see how they design their offense, but I'm a little worried about that.
Let's also pump the brakes about competing with the Warriors. Minnesota hasn't made the playoffs since Kevin Garnett was the MVP of the league.
13 years.
Making the playoffs is enough for them. They're not worried about competing with the Warriors.
And this team, frankly, should make the playoffs.
They should.
There shouldn't be any more excuses. They've got depth. They've used their free agency well. And I will say this. They didn't have to sign a star player. They have 3 star players already under contract. They needed to. They have 2.5 star. No, I agree. You're right. Yeah. They have 2.5 star players under contract, and they're hoping for Andrew Wiggins to get there. They needed to bolster the supporting cast around it, and they've done that.
All right, well, I am still reeling from the Paul George.
You broke?
I know.
You broke the story.
I'm still like
you know before anybody else did.
I know. I'm still going, wait, that's it? Really? Paul, that's all they got for Paul George? The biggest move of the weekend continues to be the trade they got Paul George to Oklahoma City. And Paul is going to join the MVP, Russell Westbrook, who was able to lead the Thunder to a 6th seed in the West last year with no all-star teammates. I mean, how good does Paul George make the Thunder?
Well, the question there says, does it turn them into contenders? And I will flatly say, no, it doesn't.
You enjoyed saying that.
Because to me, we as NBA fans, we're excited when we hear about big names and new places, particularly when they team up with other big names. We don't want to hear like the truth, which is these are two guys who have been known to have questionable shot selection at times.
You're being kind.
I'm being very kind. Playing for a coach who, look, Billy Donovan won 2 rings at the collegiate level, was a very well-respected coach, but nothing about what's happened at the pro level indicates that he's able to reel these guys in or make them commit to any sort of system that isn't do what you want now that you can do what you want, or however the saying goes. And that's not going to get it done against the elite teams in the West.
This is going to be a test drive here because they're courting Rudy Gay. They don't really have a good mechanism to sign Rudy Gay, but it's not clear what Rudy Gay's market is out there elsewhere. Right. And so we talked several times in this show about could some players come on discounts? Could Rudy Gay look at this situation and say, you know what, I know that the market might not be great for me right now. I will take what the Thunder can give me, or he can try to work out a sign and trade with the Kings. More likely just take what the Thunder can give him and try to join these guys. And then you're talking about a team that, no, they're not beating the Warriors, but with Rudy Gay, Russell Westbrook, Paul George.
There's another team on Rudy Gay, okay, and I think this is a little underrated here, but if you're in a spot where you're maybe not going to get the kind of money that you were hoping for, why don't you a lot of guys then look at a team where can I go where I can play a lot, like Deion Waiters last year.
Yeah.
Where can I go where I can have a contract year? What about the LA Clippers?
You know, it's funny because here's a guy who's coming off of a very serious injury, a torn Achilles. And that's probably dampening his market. So playing somewhere and showing people, look, I am healthy. I can play. Give me a chance. That's not a bad idea. And playing in L.A., where we now know without Chris Paul, they're going to be hurting for some offense. And I know there's been talks of trying to get Danilo Gallinari in there. And obviously he's a better option because you know at least he was healthy last year, relatively healthy.
Well, for Gallinari.
Relatively healthy, relatively. But, yeah, that's not a bad idea. But when you talk about Oklahoma City, I just go back to the basketball fit. I don't know if the basketball fit is there. And I'm not talking about can they beat the Warriors. I'm talking about just the regular run-of-the-mill good teams in the West. Are they the best team in their division? Are they better than the Utah Jazz?
Well, let's find out about Gordon Hayward first on that.
You know what I love about this, though? You said this earlier. This is like the Kobe system team because there's Westbrook and Paul, and they both grew up idolizing Kobe.
Yes, they did.
You know, okay, but you know what Kobe was about? Like, if he had respect for you, if he had respect to say, okay, I'll pass you the ball because I think you might hit it. Over the years, he didn't
have a lot of respect.
Do you know who he respected? You know who he respected? Remember Steve Blake?
Yes.
Kobe loves Steve Blake.
Yeah.
That was one of his guys that he loved, right? I mean, he passed him the ball at the end of a playoff game. Fish, right? There's certain guys.
Respect Andre Roberson.
Yeah. But look, like Paul George and Russell Westbrook, they're going to respect each other. I'm kind of interested to see how that pairing is going to go.
I think they respect one another, and I don't think it's animosity. It's just think about Durant and Westbrook, right? There was no friction there, not an outward friction. It's just an understanding that the way we play is your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. That's good, but that's playing checkers in a league where people are increasingly playing chess, and of course the best team in the league is playing global thermonuclear war. It's just, there's levels to this, right?
I'm just excited about the stat sheet, though. It's going to be like Westbrook is going to be like 9 for 27. Paul is going to be 8 for 23, and then the next game it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of Gallinari, if the Wizards match on Otto Porter, watch Gallinari in Sacramento.
They're just throwing that bag to anybody.
I like that. Just toss it out there. Hey, we got to take a break, but guess what? We got one of our own free agents coming up next, making his jump debut. Front office insider Bobby Marks to discuss how long the Warriors. I'm Ramona Shelburne. Rachel Nichols is like in my ear in spirit. That's Amin El-Hassan and Brian Windhorst over there. And now we'd like to welcome in the newest addition to the NBA family here at ESPN. That's front office insider Bobby Marks with jump debut. How about it? Give it up, guys. Give it up. Give it up.
Hey.
Welcome, Bobby.
Hello, Bobby.
How are you
Bobby
guys?
Marks knows his stuff.
Hey, Bobby, you as a former front office guy have to appreciate what the Houston Rockets have done this offseason. I mean, I think all of us did the math on that first Chris Paul trade and said, wait, that doesn't add up. They must be doing something. And then there were all these trades with guys on non-guaranteed contracts. What is Houston doing? Nene, PJ Tucker, Chris Paul. Like, what are they doing now, and what do they got going forward?
Well, first, I'm sure there's a Staples next to Houston, by Houston, that sold a lot of calculators. But where the Rockets are right now is that they've got $108 million in guaranteed contracts. They finally got the Nene contract resolved based on the over 38 rule. They signed P.J. Tucker yesterday, and now they're hard capped. But they also have about $6 million in non-guaranteed contracts that maybe they can put together with a Trevor Ariza and go out and try to get another player there. But this is where their roster is. There's still certainly some work to do on that bench based on finding another point guard. Can you get another wing also?
So, Bobby, one of the things that you do so well for us here at ESPN already, we're already enjoying all of your information you're giving us. Golden State Warriors have spent a ton of money, and they're going to spend a ton of money. They're already way into the tax. They haven't even re-signed Kevin Durant yet. They're committing to these guys for 3 more years, in Steph Curry's case, 5 years. How does their situation look going forward, and how much money are we talking about these guys are going to spend?
A lot, Brian. And I think the Andre Iguodala contract was kind of the domino where we saw how much this Warrior team was going to spend. You're looking at roughly $40 million right now. Let's say if they sign Nick Young to the full to the tax mid level, that number is going to go up to about $52 million. And where it's going to hurt is in years 3 and 4. Look at those numbers. That is the repeater tax number. $198 million, $222 million. That doesn't even count your salary right now. And Brian, as you know, I worked for that Nets organization. I paid a large tax bill one year, $90 million. And as I've said before, when you have to pay that number, you don't pay that in installments. That is one lump sum. They give you the wiring instructions. You pay it by July 7th. You hit the button, and that money goes right into the league's bank account. But can the Warriors do it? Of course they can do it. I think it's just a matter of can you stomach the cost of it.
Bobby, that must be so fun to have an owner who can just write that check like that. I don't know what that's like. You know, we had to fight for our little scraps in Phoenix. But talking about Carmelo Anthony, here's a guy that, at least it seems like right now, the Knicks aren't going to buy out. What are some of the options if teams are trying to trade for him outright? What kind of destinations could we see Carmelo Anthony land?
Well, I think it's going to be based on who kind of falls short with some of these free agents. Could it be maybe a team like Boston if they miss out on Gordon Hayward right now? I think the next couple days here, is going to determine where the market is as far as can maybe the Clippers maybe jump back in the mix. That number is certainly high, though. You're looking at $26 million this year, $27 million for the following year, and I'm not even putting into that $8 million trade bonus, which I think we don't have to pay attention to right now. And I say that based on, remember what Chris Paul did last week, where he reduced that number from 3.6 to $600,000. So there's certainly a way you can finagle with the numbers, but I still believe it would be through the buyout market. But with new management, I think we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode.
Hey, Bobby, thanks. Good job. Look, that was good, guys. That was a jump debut. Nice job.
We're going to be talking to him a lot more.
I know. I'm loving it. Keep those emails coming. I'm loving it. I feel like I'm part of a front office right now. Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Amin, did you see what the Lakers are doing? Nothing so far. Nothing so far. Hanging back with their sacred cap space for next year.
He loves that word, doesn't he? Rob Pelinka loves using that term, sacred cap space.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that, is a good sell job. We can tell that Pelinka is selling. He's pretty good at selling. But up the coast, I just want to go back 1 second. Did you see that chart? It was just on there.
Can we throw that back up?
Let Joe Lacob worry about that.
But seriously, these are numbers like we've never seen before. And I want you to look at two columns. That first column is fine, but the second column, that's just tax. That's not going to anybody but the NBA.
Oh my gosh!
And we won't even worry about 2021. Just look at 2018-19, $90 million in tax. In tax, that's like
cost of doing business.
It'd be like $3 million a team. Thank you very much. And then look at that jump in 2019. $200 million higher in tax than they are in salary. I understand that they have lots of money, but the whole point of this repeater tax, which is hitting the Cavs this year, is it's supposed to force competitive balance. It's supposed to force the team to break up. Will this team be able to be kept together? They say they can, but wow, look at those numbers.
The problem is, again, people say, oh, but the team value has gone up since they bought it. Sure, but that's not cash on hand.
Yeah, that's a theoretical.
That's like I
value.
bought my house for $70,000.
Yeah.
It's worth $700,000.
Well, that's pretty good. Where do you live?
Theoretically. I'm not
Good job, Amin.
I live in Cleveland. No.
Oh man,
I bought
it wouldn't be
Cleveland.
$700,000. I'll
There
tell you
go.
that.
But that extra $630,000 theoretically is not. I don't have it laying around. It's all in the house, so it's all in the team. And Brian,
Plus, they're building an arena which they're self-financing.
Yes.
And I know these guys have a lot of money. And I know what you're saying, Ramona, earlier today about let's not worry about the owner's money. But when we're talking about a historic team being tried to keep together, I mean, and none of this is breaking news, but now that we see it, you know.
Black and white.
Oh, my God.
Or
Just,
black
Yeah, but
and
guess
red, I should
what?
say.
You know who wants to stay together? Those guys.
Sure.
Like, those guys have talked. They've
but they're
all
not
gotten
taking-
on the same page.
they're all talking-
Kevin Durant's taking less so they can stay together this
don't
year.
$3 million
Yeah.
less.
I know,
Don't mistake me explaining what the owners feel like for their defense. I'm not defending billionaires from spending money. I'm just telling you, everyone, all of us, everyone out there has a level of affluence that someone else looks like, whoa, you got all that money? And we could say, hey, I paid $100 for a stick of gum. And there's someone out there that said, but you can afford it. This is not a
I mean,
big
there's
deal.
literally people who pay
It's-
like extra money for like gold-plated chocolate.
Sure.
Like
I know,
you,
but
you don't need
what we're
gold-plated
seeing-
chocolate. You don't need to pay $100
We've never
for
seen
that.
spending like this in the history of American and professional sports. And so just the point is, oh my God, are the Warriors great? And now the point is, oh my God, are they going to be expensive?
By the way, you know what happens to that tax money, that $90 million? It gets divided to all your competitors who didn't go into tax.
Consolation prize.
But I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
they.
Can't buy the Larry O'Brien trophy with it, though, I mean.
No, you cannot.
You can buy a lot of gold. You can buy more gold.
Yeah, but look, what we saw there is that they haven't even talked about paying Draymond Green and Klay Thompson yet. Okay, that's when things get really expensive.
That's what those numbers indicate. Those numbers that Bobby put together there indicate keeping Draymond Green and Klay Thompson and signing them the way they just signed Durant and Curry. And I think it's just fair to ask, will they be able to stomach it?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it again. Let's put it up again. And again, look at the luxury tax increases. So next year, it's heavy. And by the way, their payroll this year was $100 million. So they won their title with a $100 million payroll. Next year, I don't even have to be a math wizard. It's 80% more.
Right.
But just when you talk about dynasty, these new rules are anti-dynasty rules. And there is the.
Well, you know, remember yesterday when LeBron James put the tweet out saying that Steph Curry should get $400 million, like Steph Curry's underpaid. So instead of Steph Curry getting that money now is being redistributed to the rest of the teams that are not over the cap.
Right.
And those teams are using it to redistribute it to players who are not as good as Steph Curry.
Yes.
That's right.
And that goes back to the BRI split that we talked about earlier. I have a question for you guys, though.
Go for it.
Looking at that graphic, let's throw it up one more
I like
time.
it.
How many rings is it worth, right? That money. How many rings is
Well,
it
they've
worth?
already got 2.
They've got 2. So how many? At what point do you say,
Well,
if I don't win this many, then it's not worth it?
Well, we'll see.
And getting back to the topic of the other teams in the West, other teams in the league, it's now Star Wars. Like, the only way to compete with Golden State is to get a team with as many stars. So you see teams like the Lakers in their sacred cap space for next year. You see Houston trying to go, okay, we got 1, now we got 2. Let's see if we can get 3. Oklahoma City has Russell and Paul George.
Which is why some teams are saying, look at those numbers. Let's wait out because we know they're not going to be able to pay it, and we'll be ready to go in 2019, 2020. Because there are teams doing that. And it's the teams like the Rockets that are seeing those numbers and flying in the face of it and say, you know what, we're going to go now anyway.
All right, guys. Make or Miss is next, just moments away. But first, we show you Hassan Whiteside's free agent recruiting pitch via his Snapchat. Enjoy.
There was DJ Khaled.
Listen, you can walk in the cold, or you can ride in the heat. Or you can ride in the heat.
Beer.
You can eat strawberries there, too.
Strawberries and beer?
Yeah, that works. No, that's kind of gross.
Hey.
It's a Make or Miss League, guys.
Yay.
Make recruiting. Hassan Whiteside is on Snapchat trying to lure players to the Heat, touting Miami's warm weather and beachside foot baths. I mean, do you like Whiteside's pitch to free agents?
You know what? He doesn't waste time telling you about what the other teams in town are doing. Hey, come check out our baseball team. He tells you about real things that you can experience every
They didn't take Hayward to Marlins Park. Is that what you're saying?
No Osuna highlights. I like
This Banana boats never miss, you guys.
This is
They
amazing.
never miss. I'm down with banana boats anytime. Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade were out on the open water when they spotted an unmanned banana boat.
Yeah.
Ryan, is this an omen? Should we doubt about a Super Friends reunion?
Maybe we should doubt it because where are the Super Friends?
Yeah.
The last 2 years they've been on the banana boat together. This year, no friends on the banana boat. By the way, Gabby and Dwayne have been on vacation for like 3 weeks. God
3
bless
weeks?
them.
It feels like 3 years.
just
keep it- I mean-
just
Their Snapchat
messing
never
around,
stops.
just messing around the Mediterranean.
Sometimes we get a little more on the Snapchat than we bargained for, too. Fake perseverance. 61-year-old Calvin Roberts was drafted by the Spurs in 1980, but didn't make the squad. Now, as a grandpa, he wants another crack at making an NBA roster. I mean, are NBA dreams ever really dead?
Let me be the well-actually guy. He
No,
wants to
no,
make
no.
an NBA Summer League roster. And you
okay,
know what?
okay.
I, for one, would think it would be a great gesture. The Spurs should do it. They should just have
They
him
probably
there.
still have his rights. And what's his cap hold? I mean, let's get Bobby Marks back on
Yeah.
here. What's his cap hold?
Like a Disney movie in the
It'd be
works
minimum.
already.
Whatever the minimum is.
Fake headshots. Jump alum and Big Three baller Steven Jackson is playing
Yes!
second game with the Killer Queens today, and his
Don't get
headshot
hurt,
is
Jax.
tremendous. I mean, does Stacks have the greatest headshot ever?
Absolutely, man. That's
So
my
good.
guy right there, man. And you know what?
good.
He was on broke the news that Chauncey was coming to play today in Charlotte. I don't know how it went, but I just, as Brian just
Stacks,
said,
don't get hurt,
don't
baby.
get hurt, man.
Never
Don't get
change, Stacks. Never change.
And Sean,
My
you
man,
too.
killing
the
it.
only one in color. How much do you love
Take
that?
care of those Achilles and those hamstrings, guys. Just ease into those layups.
This guy, man.
All right. Hey, it's a miss. Hey, did you guys see that little tweet that I put out right before the show? Not that we were on, but that the Lakers are still interested in Rajon Rondo. What do you like? Rondo, Lonzo Ball, you like that?
1 year deals, Lakers will take him if Rondo wants a 1 year deal. But hey, if I was Rondo, I would take a minimum and go play for a team that's a contender.
I'd say 1 year deals are cool, but if Ball is the future, let him run point full time.
Agree, completely agree.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. It's been fun.
Fun week.